This song has gotten quite eerie. If you guys know the song, welcome to our food talk Squid drama edition, shall we say it?
Yeah, that's the big warehouse store, the generic brand version. Man, normally we start with that the upright bass, the jazzy, it gets me in the mood. Now I just feel like I want to hide.
그럼요. 갑자기 숨고 싶은, you just want to save your life. 그런 느낌이 드는데요. For those of you guys who don't know, we are talking about or having a theme about the Squid drama that has taken over the world.
Really has. And I feel like this is one of those rare kind of shows that actually everyone has watched because, I've noticed. So, on the streaming platform that it's on, I when I was on there the other day and I looked at the rankings, it's down to Eerie. It's number 2. And I don't think it means it's any less popular. I think it just means everyone who has seen it already.
Right. 지금은 약간 old news일 수도 있어요. 왜냐면 it was so hot, so big when it first came out.
It's still big, though. I think that's the thing, right? It lives on through the memes and through the cultural discussions. It's what we're doing right now, isn't it?
그러니까요. 지미 팰런 Late Night Talk Show 미국에서 MBC에 나오는 지미 팰런도 이 달고나 만들기 그런 것도 하고 이런 챌린지, 이런 도전을 많이 하더라고요. 미국에서도. So this is just another wave, another 한류 wave that is hitting the shores of pretty much every country around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also introduced a lot of things about Korean culture that you would have otherwise never been able to experience if you didn't grow up here or if you didn't live here.
Sure.
A big thing is that the whole, without by the way, today's episode is going to be spoiler free. We're not gonna tell you any kind of plot points in case if you haven't seen it. But
on YouTube, people are saying, "Don't spoil it for me. I haven't watched it yet."
But one thing we can say is just that it's a show that's deeply rooted in nostalgia. I mean, because all these things, their childhood games, the settings that they put the contestants in, they're all very much rooted in the Korean childhood experience. Things that, again, if this show had never come out, someone from across the world would have never been able to see.
Sure. And usually, the foods that come out, the games that they play, I actually haven't watched it fully yet either. But seeing snippets of it and seeing people talk about it, it's stuff that are very simple. It's simple games, simple foods, things that you would play and eat when you were kids. And so that's why it's a kind of a little bit of an eerie twist to those childhood memories.
Right. Yeah, it's very much like this kind of twisted look into just like your average, Korean 동네. This your average, the life of a Korean child growing up only with many more bullets and just blood-curdling screams.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get to our first food, menu.
Yeah, so we want to talk about the food in this because, again, when you look online, people have questions like, "What's that they're eating?" They've never seen it before because maybe their only familiarity with Korean food are just the very the famous dishes, but something like the 도시락. That's featured. It's not featured prominently. No spoilers here. They're just given it to eat at one point.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking all about, our 옛날 love stories. And of course it takes us back to when we were students as well. And so 옛날 첫사랑이 도시락 싸주면 얼마나 기분 좋아요. And that brings us to our question that we want to give once again as well. 2부에서도 문자 많이 보내주세요. 스퀴드 놀이에서 나온 음식 중에 가장 기억에 남는 음식은 무엇인가요? 이유와 함께 샵 1013 짧은 문자 50원, 긴 문자 100원 문자 보내주시면 추첨을 통해서 커피 쿠폰 드리고 있습니다. Keep sending your messages in. But yeah, let's talk about 도시락. These lunch boxes?
Yeah, so they're the old style like 양철 도시락. So they're made of tin.
Yes.
Yeah, so right now actually you can still see them. I want to say about 10 years ago, they kind of had this resurgence in popularity.
Because 10 years ago is when I first came, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
My mom was like, they still have these. But it was that, spam or egg and gochujang and pop. That's
sure.
it.
Yeah, maybe something really simple like 멸치볶음 or like 어묵볶음. Just like the most simple of all banchan. And these were the toshirak. These were the lunch boxes that kids would take every day, early 1990s, because that's when the National School Lunch Program rolled out.
Oh, I see.
So I remember even when I was a kid, this was a nostalgia thing. By the mid to late 90s,
sure.
This was already kind of, a symbol of years gone by. So now we're several generations removed. People, of our generation, millennials and younger, this is something that they would not have experienced personally taking to school.
Sure.
By that point, you had all the cutesy, the idan, toshirak.
맞아요.
And because of school lunches, you would only pretty much take them to field trips and school trips and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, you can still find these old school toshirak today. There are cafes and restaurants that will specialize, kind of have this kind of shabby nostalgia kind of feeling on the inside. It's also something that you'll find as anju at a lot of places too.
That's true.
Like a 옛날 도시락. And
맞아요.
some places, some 고깃집 will also offer it as their 식사 option too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's usually with the term 옛날, which means old, previous, or just, the good old days, the 옛날 도시락.
Sure. And it's just, even if you never grew up with it, it's something that evokes old memories. Like looking at a record player.
Right.
Even if you might not have grown up in the era where, I grew up with cassettes and CDs. But for some reason, LPs and records still take me to that sort of place.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. Well, number 2 is the same as well. 달고나. Yeah. So 달고나. So if you're not familiar with what this is, and you might remember 달고나 coffee being a big trend a little while ago. You might have heard both the terms 달고나 and 뽑기 and gotten a little confused. They're one and the same, except they refer to slightly different things. So 달고나 is the name of the treat. You can also call the treat 뽑기, but 뽑기 kind of refers to kind of popping something out or poking something out. Yeah.
And so that refers to the act of, cutting out the little shape in the middle and trying to get the perfect cutout.
Right.
If you do it, the 뽑기 vendor would give you a free one. And it's
or
not,
you don't have to pay for it.
You don't have to pay for it.
Some sort of service.
And I never did that when I was younger. So I think that's the thing, right? So I didn't actually really experience 뽑기 until I was a little bit older, maybe about 중2, 중3 때. And because there was never one in my neighborhood. There was never a 뽑기 아줌마 in my neighborhood. And it wasn't until I was in the later years of middle school where there was one in front of our school. And so by that age, I'm I'm too cool for this. I'm just going to eat it. I can pay the 300won or how much ever it cost back then.
맞아요.
But it was undertone on is something that's definitely nostalgic for me. But what about you? Did you ever do the 뽑기 aspect of 달고나?
Yes, of course. 저는 한 20년 전에 or something like that. 한국에 처음 왔어요. And so this was our first experience to Korea. And we have, our 삼촌s and 이모s. And our 삼촌 took us to a 포장마차를 데리고 갔어요. 근데 그 옆에 뽑기가 있었어요. 그래서 그때 처음 해보고 사실 저 같은 경우에는 뽑기도 뽑기지만 그 맛이 너무 좋았거든요.
Yeah.
어렵기 때문에 it's just sugar. 근데
really
설탕은 맛있잖아요.
I mean, it's caramel is what it is.
Right.
Well, I mean, so the basic ingredients are essentially just boils down to two things. It's sugar and baking soda. So what happens when you cook sugar and turn it into a caramel, it actually turns slightly acidic. And just like when you make those baking soda volcanoes, you add baking soda to it, and that acidic caramel and the basic baking soda form a foam. And that foam, it sets up, and that's where 뽑기 gets its unique texture from. So you'll see
it's sticky, but it's airy.
It's airy. That's right. So it's essentially a set foam, and so one of the reasons why you'll often hear it called honeycomb in Western countries. It actually kind of went through this trend period in the mid 2000s, early 2010s in fine dining. So they would make like kind of thick pieces of
고급
달고나.
레스토랑에 달고나 찾을 수도 있다고요?
Absolutely. So they would make these thick pieces of 달고나 and break it up, and so you had this like beautiful craggly texture, and they would call it honeycomb. So like like finished with a honeycomb garnish.
I see. 약간 가니쉬처럼.
Right.
아하, 그런 것도 막 300원짜리인데 팔고 나면 한 300만 원으로 팔고. Well, in any case, so 도시락 달고나. Let's try to find some more here.
The term 깍두기 comes up in the show. So again, no spoilers. We're just going to mention the fact that 깍두기 is a type of kimchi here in Korea. It's a type of kimchi made with mu, with Korean radish. But here, it's also used as a term. When kids play with each other, there's unfortunately always a 깍두기, someone left out. But the idea behind 깍두기 is like even if there's someone left out, you still kind of take them along. The small kid that maybe might not be able to run as fast. Or like your little sister, your 동생 that still wants to tag along. Yeah, you don't play with them, but you still let them come along. That's the 깍두기.
Oh, I see. I never heard of that term. 약간 왕따이긴 하지만 불쌍하기 때문에 그리고 정이 있기 때문에.
Right. So like I'm glad you brought up the term 왕따 because like 왕따 is like that's like straight up leaving someone out. Right. That's like straight up like like we're gonna bully you, we're gonna ignore you. 깍두기 is like come with me.
알았어.
Sort of feeling.
이번만이야. 근데 매번 그러고.
Sure.
깍두기. Well, that's a fun way to use the kimchi term.
Yeah.
계란이랑 사이다가 있는데요. 이것도 뭔가요?
So one of the meals, again, not a plot point. They're just given it to eat at some point. But one thing I found really interesting. So 계란 and 삶은 계란, boiled eggs, and 사이다. They were given this, and people were like, "Is this really what they feed Korean children? This is not enough food." But
진짜 그런 반응이 있었어요.
진짜 그런 반응이 있었어요. Like people were shocked when they heard that this would be like a meal or a snack.
I mean, obviously, 드라마인데도.
Sure. I mean, I think it's just one of those things, though. I think people grow up with different experiences.
Sure.
I think a lot of people would think giving a child maybe just a slice of cheese is not enough as a snack either. And it's just something small and simple. And here in Korea, you take like a 삶은 계란 and you just dip it in a little bit of salt, and that's a snack right there. And still available to this day. I think it's one of my go-tos when I go to a 편의점, right? Because they'll have like the two in the pack.
구운 계란.
Right, 구운 계란 too, and which has, so that's a roasted egg. It has a little bit more of a smoky flavor to it.
맞아요. 어떤 분들은 양식 같은 경우에는 people just eat, bread and toast. 한국 분들한테는 어떻게 빵 한 조각으로 아침 식사를 끼니를 때워라고 하기 때문에 당연한 문화 차이가 있겠죠.
And they fed them with 사이다, and a little follow-up to our kind of investigation on this term that we had last week. So yeah, I think my theory was correct. I tried doing a little bit more research into it. It's just over time, and as cider, the fermented apple was a drink, kind of traveled around the world, it just kind of loosened up its meaning. And by the time it reached East Asia, it referred to something carbonated and fruity.
Carbonated and fruity.
So that just became a term for like a fruit soda, essentially. Before the term soda was really a thing even.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a message in. 노익상님께서는 드라마에서 이정재가 돈 잃어버리고 딸 생일에 떡볶이 사준 거 생각이 나게 되네요. 불쌍해.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think 떡볶이 also is such a cultural food in Korea. We kind of reminisce or think about 떡볶이 with a lot of our memories. It's associated to sad memories, happy memories.
Sure. It's always there. It's so readily available. And one of the reasons why that was a thing in the movie. So his character, he's down and out on his luck. I'm sure this is not really a spoiler because it happens in the first 15 minutes.
Base setting, yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of a deadbeat dad. And he promises to buy his kid chicken for her birthday, which is, a lot pricier, but ends up only being able to afford to buy her tteokbokki. And, that hence, that sort of contrast, like couldn't live up to the chicken promise, but here's tteokbokki at least.
Yeah. Well, 5595님께서도 깍두기는 왕따도 아니고 같이 놀자라는 문화에서 녹아나는 한국적 문화입니다. 라고 보내주셨는데요.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm glad you brought up the idea of 왕따 because there is that difference between the two terms.
Right.
Yeah, it's I think it's interesting because there's no real translation for that in English because but it is such a universal thing, I feel like.
Right, we all have a 깍두기.
The tag-along. Yeah.
Tag-along. There you go.
But even then, I mean, tag-along is neutral, whereas 깍두기, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of a twisting of a knife there.
Yeah, well, in any case, to all of our 깍두기s out there, we love you. We couldn't play our games without you. Well, in any case, that's all the time we have for our food talk 오징어 drama edition, but maybe we'll have to continue this next week. But in any case, it was great having you.
Sounds good.
We'll see you again next week.